Jessica Le Mazurier in the newsroom. From afar, political change in Russia seems like something that's decided from the top down behind the closed doors of the Kremlin. So what's going on? Vladimir Putin's united Russia dropping below 50% in last weekend's general election, losing its absolute majority in the Duma, and now protesters, numbering sometimes even in the thousands, no longer in the hundreds. It's not just in Moscow, by the way, demonstrations as well in Putin's hometown of St. Petersburg, where his party got only 1/3 of the vote, and elsewhere. With the ball now in his court this Wednesday, the once and probably future president of Russia went to register his candidacy for next March's election. Today in the France 24 debate, it may be December, but we're going to ask if it's the start of a Russian spring with, from Moscow, artist Misha Most, who contributes to the France 24 Observer's website. And in our studios, former parliamentarian Natalia Narachotskaya of the conservative Russian think tank, the Institute of Democracy and Cooperation. Thanks for being with us. Also with us, Galia Ackerman of the Paris review Politique Internationale, International Politics, which is a monthly?
No, quarterly.
Quarterly, there you go. France 24 International Affairs editor Douglas Herbert. We won't say how long ago he worked in Moscow.
Don't give it away,
Well,
please.
let's not go there. And France 24 producer Vladimir Smekov, thank you for being with us. Your comments, by the way, appreciated as always on the France 24 Debate Facebook page and on Twitter, where our handle here is @FrancoisF24. Who says Russians are cynical about their politics and don't like to vote? We can show you election night results captured on YouTube from state television news channel Rossiya 24. But Douglas, help me out here. I'm having trouble with the math.
These are, yeah, you know, I'm not a mathematician myself, but this is us from Sverdlov region. It's an administrative district in the Ural Mountain area. If you do your maths there and add up those numbers, I think they come out to about 115%. Now, we're seeing a different chart here. This is for Voronezh, which is a town southern Russia. And I think the figures there, add them up for all the parties, I think it's just under 130%, something like 128%. So that means more than 100% of the population of these districts went out to vote.
What happened? In fairness, is that a technical glitch? What's that about?
Well, first of all, the station they were showing it on was Rossiya 24. That is a state-backed funded channel. Look, I mean, what happened there is that they obviously showed results that don't add up to 100%. Now, why we saw those results, you know, obviously there's some sort of fraudulent or some sort of doctoring the results because it's just impossible, right? You know, you have United Russia getting, first of all, a much higher score in both of these areas than, as you said at the outset, they got across the country. They dipped below 50% in the national vote, yet in both of these districts we see it, well, at least in Voronezh, well above 60%, just under 40% actually in Sverdlov. So something's up. Don't quite know what, but, you know, given all the reports of ballot stuffing in electoral districts across the land, multiple voting, holes in ballot boxes, in some cases, electoral officials filmed in stations filling in the ballots, charges there was even invisible ink. So you filled it out one way, but then it was either it disappeared or it was very easily erasable.
You're shaking your head here.
No, well, I do share some of the skepticism about our political system, and I certainly would like it to be improved. But I'm certainly not so apocalyptic because I've lived through 20 years in politics, in public activity in Russia, and I can tell you that what is going on now is still much better than it used to be in Yeltsin time, where there was complete fraud and no opposition ever could speak out at all, but the West was applauding even to the elections of, I think, 1995. That was total fraud and disregarded even the boxes with dollars. What was happening now? I was impressed by the riots by young people, which I watched yesterday from Brussels on TV. And I remember that there were no such riots last time. When
you call these riots? Are they?
Maybe it's my bad English, because this
Protests.
manifestation, protests. There were no protests like this last elections, although United Russia, this party of functionaries, of course, won then 67% or something, and people were skeptical about it. But people probably at that time before thought that their protest could make no difference at all. It would not make any, significant message to the authorities. Whether now I fix, and that is a positive sign for me, that people are not afraid to go in the streets and to manifest and to show their protest. That means that public, civilian and political activity of young people especially is growing. And that obviously will be a feature of the future political period. And our authorities must take note of this and build. But I would like also mention before, probably I won't have a chance after my distinguished counterpart continue and take the time. I would say that contrary to what normally and usually the West thinks, the protest feelings are much more anti-Western and non-liberal than this minuscule opposition.
All right, we'll pick up on the point of what their message.
Because I have several sites, political sites in Moscow, and we have attendance of very militant bloggers, etc. Most of the most of the protests are that the government, the power, the authorities do not crush those bloody, I'm sorry, liberals who created this fraud economy, which impoverished the nation, which brought up the deindustrialization of the country, etc., etc., etc. They support any strong effort on the international field.
Let's pick up on your second. We will pick up on your second point about
what about fraud?
We'll pick up on your second point afterwards.
First entries of these results were not the counted votes, but the polls, exit polls. So that of course can be,
let's ask Misha, who's listening in to us from Moscow. Misha, you told us when we spoke earlier that you did not vote last time around, that you did go to the polls this time. Why is that?
Yes, well, this happened not only with me, but also with most of the population. I mainly mean like young people, 20, 30 years old. Well, last time everybody saw that no change can be done. And I guess time has come that people got fed up, and everybody said that this time we are going and this time we are voting. And people expressed their opinion towards the leading party by voting other parties they liked. Sometimes people didn't like any parties, but they still went and they voted some other party except for the leading one. So it was just like an act.
Now, Natalia here saying...
Yeah.
Natalia here saying that the fact that there are protests, it's a sign of a burgeoning democracy. You are using a pseudonym to speak to us. We've covered your face. Why are you not showing yourself in broad daylight here?
Well, it's actually not about the demonstration. It's about some other things I'm into in Moscow. So I'm not afraid of something about the demonstrations, really. But it's not right to call them riots, because there is no vandalism going on like in London, and people are not killing each other, like in Egypt. It's mainly just manifestation. It's just like a meeting of people who are just standing or walking. Nobody's getting hurt. It's not getting brutal. I hope it will not.
And how did you heed the call to go down in the street? What made you personally decide to go down and join those protests?
Well, as most of the other people, it was just people got fed up, as I already said, that this time when people thought that they can change something and everybody went to vote, but after that we see these fraud results, and there are thousands of cases, and these are only documented cases. I guess there are many other cases which have not been caught on camera. and on photographs. So people just went out on the streets because they thought that, well, this is enough. We should show the government that we know that it's fraud and we don't agree with it. So everybody went. Many people have never been to the streets, to the meetings, never were interested in politics, but they still went outside, and it's really different people, mainly young ones, as I said already, but it's people who care.
All right, and Vladimir Smeknov, he was mentioning there that the instances of alleged fraud that have really outraged people. We're going to perhaps look at one image that has gone viral over the web. I think there's been something like more than 1 million hits for it on YouTube. It's in a polling station. I believe it's in Moscow.
It's in Moscow. It's an electoral bureau of vote number 2,501.
Can you set the scene for us here? What's going on here?
You're seeing here the head of what they call electoral commission is the person who is supervising the team of workers working at the commission. And behind the counter, he in fact is filling out the votes. He's sitting now he hid the papers. Now the person who is filming asked him to get them out and to show exactly what he was doing. But if you saw the video before, you would have seen that he was filling out, signing the bulletins and putting in, checking the number 6 line, which is the line for United Russia. And this is why this video has become so widely popular on the internet. And it just shows one of the practices which were employed, and there were many of them which were devised over these elections. There was a whole range of them. If I may, going from what they call carousel, where they would take people who they pay, they would chauffeur them around to different voting stations with dozens,
busing them from station to station.
From station to station, with dozens, if not hundreds, of bulletins in their pockets. They had to go to the counter number 1 and 2, go to the ballot box, and then stuff the boxes with dozens of papers. The difference this time, as you said, you were right. You are right. The last time the elections was also rigged and voted. This time it was documented. This time, what is different this time and the other time 10 years ago, or less so, what is different is that today, thanks, I guess, to the internet and to the communications, people were able, the opposition or those who cared about the elections, were able to organize themselves, to train in the observer techniques. And then you had the citizen observers, which were there, not only official observers from the parties, but citizen observers. Most of the videos you see on the internet, they are amateur videos.
Gali Ackerman, so the smartphone changing Russian politics, but listening to what Misha was saying, what strikes you?
Well, I think he's right when he says that people are just fed up. You know, already for several years, this party, United Russia, is called by opposition, but also widely by people, party of crooks and thieves. People are fed up because there is this huge stealing going on, this huge corruption going on. This corruption became huge under Putin years, and so
under Putin there was corruption before Putin as well.
Yes, of course, but numbers became much more important.
I do not agree. I agree with the fact that we have a lot of corruption, and one of the first seminars here in our institute was dedicated to the comparison between the anti-corruption legislation in France and Russia, and the comparison was not in favor of Russia, of course, but you don't call the corruption the fact when, for instance, one port in Far East was privatized by Yeltsin disciples for 1/10,000th part of its real cost.
Yes, well, yes,
such mass corruption that was going on there.
No,
is not surmounted.
It is not very interesting to compare now, because then it will take all our time to compare Yeltsin's era and now. Let's speak about what's going on now. And I think the level of corruption, you can just see numbers by Transparency International. Russia shifted, I think, to 154th position I mean, one is the best, and there is only 180 countries.
It was widely reported, and this isn't really surprising. This has been a long-standing practice. On the eve of this vote, a lot of the local governors, a lot of the officials in the regions were as much as essentially given orders to get out a certain percentage of the vote. And the number that had been bandied about, so to speak, was 65%. United Russia really wanted to have the two-thirds majority in the parliament. Why? Because with a two-thirds majority, they have an clear path to amend the constitution to basically rule as they see fit. A lot of local officials were basically said, do what you have to do, get us 65% of the vote. There was even one case, I think it was in Udmurtia Republic, where someone was filmed actually offering money to people to vote for United Russia. Now, obviously, you could argue these are isolated cases. We're talking about it because they were caught on camera. They're sensational.
Thousands of them documented.
But this is
it was a website which was actually down the day of the elections. They took the website down of Golos. The Voice, which is the famous website.
The only indepent election monitor, the only independent one in Russia.
Which was shut down essentially the day the elections were taking place.
So going back to not now to the numbers, but to the essence of what's going on, I think it's just you know the last drop which overfilled.
This was the last straw for you.
Yes, and so people who were coming out for manifestations by tens. Sometimes,
by the dozens,
or by dozens, by hundreds. Sometimes, like this, every 2 months, 31 of every 2 months.
We're now showing up by the thousands.
And now, and there are already more than 10,000 inscribed for Saturday's manifestation. So it's not going to stop.
I know that on Facebook there's a call to demonstrate over the weekend, which has been we saw it
confirmed by 17,000.
It was close to 17,000 when we went to air. But Vladimir, just explain for us, because here in France, 2,000 people at a demonstration is not a big deal.
It's not a big deal, but I think we all have to realize that in the last years, there were no mass anti-government manifestations or protests. Anti-government. There were some. A lot of them were related in Russia. I'm talking in Russia. There were some, I believe, in Vladivostok when they were protesting, the car tax or something. But essentially, against the system, against the government, there were not that many of them. And now, and for Russia, I mean, if you look back into the previous months, there were some protests. They were broken up the minute they were starting. And there would not be even a dozen people there.
This is definitely bigger. And when we come back in the France 24 debate, we're going to pick up on the point that you were talking about, and that is who is protesting, why, and what are their specific demands. You're watching the France 24 debate.